In today's episode, we're talking about the Miami zombie attack, the face-eating case of Rudy Eugene. So you just know what you're in for right now. Before we begin, hi, my name is Kai, and this is Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide, the Florida Man Friday edition. As I do with every episode, I want to thank my Patreons for their support. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. If you do want to be a supporter of Love and Murder and get extras and everything like that, then head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder, and become an exclusive lamb. Let's get into this Florida Man Friday. Ronald Edward Poppo, who was born on May 17th, 1947, was raised in Brooklyn, New York. He started off life with a really bright future. He attended a prestigious high school where he was a member of the Latin Club and worked in the guidance office. And then after high school, he enrolled in the nearby City College. However, in 1966, he dropped out of college. Then, 10 years later, in the early 1970s, he became homeless. Police records show that Ronald had been arrested about 24 times, mostly for petty crimes like drinking in public, disorderly conduct, trespassing, and assault. Court records also showed that Ronald was treated for a gunshot wound in January of 1976 and listed the Salvation Army as his primary address. So it shows that, even in early 1976, he was homeless. By the time 2012 rolled around, his family, including his daughter, had not heard from him in over 40 years, and they had assumed he was dead. They actually assumed that he had self-terminated. On May 24th, 2012, workers at the Miami Homeless Assistance Program found Ronald and offered him services, telling him to go to the Miami-Dade County Homeless Trust so that he can get, services to help him get back in his feet, get shelter, stuff like that. And he said, no, thank you. In the meantime, Rudy Eugene was born on February 4th, 1981 at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, and he was born to Haitian immigrant parents, Ruth Charles, and I don't know how to say this name, Pellissier. I don't know how to say the name. And his parents had divorced just months before he was born. As a little boy, Eugene liked drawing. He really loved drawing and drew family portraits. He loved singing. When Eugene was in the 9th or 10th grade, that's when his parents revealed to him that the guy he knew as his father, Melamon Charles, this is the guy he called Daddy since basically he was 2, so basically since he could remember, this is when she decided to drop on him that this wasn't his biological father. And to top this off, this Melamon guy, who he thought was his father, had died when he was 6. So this kind of messed with Eugene's head a bit. It's just like a lot to kind of process, And so after graduating from North Miami High School in 2000, he kind of just wandered. He couldn't really get himself together. I think it really affected him more than his mother could fathom, because this happened in 9th or 10th grade that his mother told him this, and it's like he couldn't really wrap his mind around that. His mom wanted him to work in healthcare, but his head just wasn't in it. He just wasn't there for that. Eugene's then girlfriend described him as a, quote, sweet, loving gentleman and a hard-working man. At this time, he worked at a car wash and actually dreamed of owning his own business. Others also described Eugene as, quote, quiet and well-mannered, sweet and giving, nice, outgoing, ready to help anybody kind of guy. These were all of the words that were used to describe Eugene. Now, he did have a record because the Florida Department of Law Enforcement shows that he was arrested by the Miami Beach Police on a battery charge when he was 16. However, the case ended up being dropped. Then in 2004, the North Miami Beach Police had to use a taser to subdue him during a domestic dispute. Records also showed that he had been arrested 7 other times over 5 years for misdemeanor charges like vending near a school, battery, marijuana possession, trespassing, and his last arrest was in September of 2009. Now, at the time of this case, Rudy was 31 years old. He was divorced and working at a car wash. Now, I think I was calling him Eugene this whole time, but his last name is Eugene, and in my head, I just put it as his first name. But Rudy Eugene. So if I said Eugene, I'm talking about Rudy. Now we get into the morning of May 26, 2012, where Rudy had driven to Miami Beach to go to Urban Beach Week. After spending 30 or 45 minutes at the site, security video shows him just walking, going in, and then going back to his car and walking around the car. And then it shows him abandoning his car around noon. And he just began walking the MacArthur Causeway, which apparently is 3 miles long, 4.8 kilometers. Then, for some unknown reason, while he was walking the MacArthur Causeway, he just started undressing, and just by the time he was finished, he was in his birthday suit. He was completely naked. He even took off his shoes. He got rid of his driver's license, and then he left his Bible somewhere. Apparently he had his Bible, and then he just dropped that too, along with everything else. Then on his walk, he crossed paths with the 65-year-old Ronald at approximately 1:55 p.m. Ronald at that time had been laying underneath the Metro Mover. I think that's what it's called, the elevated Metro Mover on the MacArthur Causeway. So apparently, from what I researched, this is something that I guess it's kind of like, in the airport where you can go on the walking escalator thing. I think it's the same thing. I could be wrong. If you live in Florida, you know what that thing is. Just let me know if I'm wrong. So he came across Ronald, and Ronald was just sitting there, laying there, chilling as if you would lay in your bed. And Rudy just hopped on him and just started beating him for no reason. And during the 18-minute recorded encounter, Rudy beat Ronald the entire time and accused him of stealing his Bible. By the time he had finished beating Ronald, and I don't even want to say finished because he didn't stop, Ronald was unconscious. Then Rudy proceeded to remove Ronald's pants and then started biting his face off. Yes, his face off. So someone who was riding a bike at that scene, Mr. Larry Vega, stopped riding when he saw what was going on in front of him and called 911. So a little while after that, the Miami Police Department arrived, and Officer Jose Ramirez is the one who responded to the call. After doing a double take and probably losing his freaking lunch because, oh my God, what? He shouted a warning to Rudy to stop attacking Ronald. Rudy completely ignored him, and when Officer Ramirez again warned him, Rudy turned to him and growled at him, and then turned back to Ronald's face and continued biting his face off. Officer Ramirez gave one more warning. Rudy still didn't stop. So at 2:13 p.m., Officer Ramirez was forced to shoot Rudy. And at first he only shot him once, and this didn't stop him. He just kept going like nothing happened. So then he ended up having to shoot him 4 times so he would stop biting this poor man's face off. This entire ordeal ended up being captured by a security camera at the Miami Herald building. Ronald was then taken to the Jackson Memorial Hospital in critical condition with 75 to 80% of his face above his beard missing and his left eye gorged out. Although he survived the attack, initially he had no memory of it whatsoever. His face was basically destroyed, but doctors did give him a glimmer of hope, saying that most of it can be repaired. Later during the investigation, because, they need to find out what the just happened, police found Rudy's car and they then towed it so they can go through the car and maybe find some clues as to why this happened. So inside the car, they found his Bible. They found 5 empty water bottles, and they think that he had recently just drank all 5 bottles and then he went out. Rudy's body was taken for autopsy, and the first thing they did was a toxicology report. And the test revealed that all he had was a little tiny bit of marijuana in his system. They did do a comprehensive report, and they found no other substances in his system. Now, when they did the autopsy, they did find a large number of undigested pills in his stomach, and they weren't able to identify each and every one of them, but they were not yet digested. Police did have a theory, though, and they thought that this action was the result of a street drug called bath salts, even though the toxicology reports only came back positive for the presence of marijuana. They said, yeah, I hear that, but some drugs actually don't show up in a drug test, so they still thought it was bath salts or another new drug that was probably out in the system that a test hadn't been developed yet to find out if it's in your body. Then, nationally noted toxicologist Barry Logan backed up police's suspicion, and they said that Rudy's behavior was very consistent with that of bath salts. And then Barry also said that toxicologists, quote, are not testing for everything that may be out there, which is basically what, the police were thinking and what I was thinking. However, the director of toxicology at the University of Florida, Dr. Bruce Goldberger, which these are the people who even did the toxicology report on Rudy, shot back and said, quote, we are not incompetent. We have the tools, we have the sophistication, and we have the know-how. But the field is evolving so rapidly, it is hard for us to keep track. It's almost as if it's a race we can never win. So this is what he said. So by July 19th, Ronald is kind of regaining his memory of what happened. And he did explain to law enforcement that he really didn't even know who Rudy was. He said Rudy approached him in a friendly manner and then started complaining to him that he couldn't score, quote, score at the beach. And then he just started ranting and raving about how they were going to die. Ronald said he appeared, quote, souped up on something. Then, out of the blue, he started accusing Ronald about stealing his Bible and then just suddenly attacked him and strangled him with this wrestling hold. He then said that Rudy then proceeded to, quote, pluck out both of his eyes. So that's basically what happened from his side of it. So who knows? It could be bath salts or whatever. It could be some other crazy drug that's on the market that we don't know about. Ronald has undergone numerous surgeries to reconstruct his face. And as for the last reports, his medical treatments have basically been concluded, but he does remain permanently disfigured and completely blind. He lost his eyebrows, his nose, parts of his forehead and his cheek, and he lost his left eye, and he was left totally blind because he had damage to his right eye as well. During his rehabilitation, he had put on 50 pounds, which is 23 kilos. He had to relearn how to dress himself. He had to relearn how to eat. He had to relearn how to shave. He had to relearn how to shower. And the medical facility allowed him permission to stay at the facility indefinitely. Now, he does have Medicaid, which is fully funding everything. That's why he's able to stay at the medical facility indefinitely. And he received $100,000 for a community-sponsored foundation fund. So he is being taken care of. And although, like I said, the autopsy revealed that the only thing that was in his stomach was undigested pills, so basically he had no human flesh in his stomach, he was still dubbed as the Miami Zombie or the Causeway Cannibal. Because, yeah, you didn't swallow, but you sure were chewing some face. So I can understand that. And that is the case of Miami Zombie / Causeway Cannibal, Rudy Eugene. And poor Ronald is just completely disfigured. All he was doing was literally minding his business, sitting under a bridge, looking at the top of the bridge. That's literally all he was doing. He wasn't even messing with Rudy. That is the case of the Miami Zombie Causeway Cannibal Killer, Rudy Eugene. What do you think about this episode? Do you think it was bath salts, or do you think it was a mixture of the marijuana and the undigested pills? Because just because the pills didn't digest doesn't mean it didn't go into his system. Because when you take Tylenol, for instance, it takes a while to digest. That's why it's slow released, but it's slowly releasing into your system either way. So it totally could have been a mixture of one of those pills or all of those pills as side effects, plus the marijuana. So not necessarily an unknown of drug or a new drug. It's more of a bunch of legal drugs, which is, you have to get a prescription for it or over the counter, mixed in with marijuana. And that could have given him brief psychosis. And it's just so crazy because he's acting like somebody who's on cocaine or something, because I hear when people are on cocaine, you literally can't stop them. And I'm just thinking about him being shot, and that didn't even faze him. Like he didn't feel anything. So I'm just thinking it's the combination. Or maybe they even had something bad in the marijuana. I wonder if they tested the marijuana to see if it was laced. Either way, I don't think he was doing any kind of new drugs. I just think it was what he already took, maybe to kill himself. I don't know what he was doing, and mixing it with marijuana. Maybe he was just trying to do recreational drugs and he had no idea what he was doing. I don't know. But I'm going to stop yapping away and ranting. I do want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think happened? What do you think forced him? What do you think made him act this way? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to share this episode. So whatever platform you're on, go ahead and hit that share icon and share on your social media, share on your Instagram, your Twitter, if anybody uses Twitter anymore, Facebook, share to your WhatsApp, share to everybody you know and everybody you don't. Share, 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 share. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.